All right, the title of this is not clickbait. I want to offer some of you a real perspective on why you may be closer to be able to do what I've done than you think. Okay, and I need to lay a foundation really quick with two things. Okay, when you buy life insurance, there's two ways to buy life insurance. You can buy a term life policy, which means I'm covered, basically I'm covered if I die for 10 years or 20 years or 35 years. Then you can buy what's called a whole life policy, which is basically a scam, but let's put that aside. A term policy basically says I'm buying a window of time where if I die, someone else gets a big paycheck, okay? And the whole life policy is basically saying I want to have life insurance until the day I die. And whole life insurance is more expensive because they know that you're going to die someday. And term life insurance is cheaper because they're hoping that you don't die within the window of time and they don't have to pay you any money. And when I was about 18 years old, I'd done a lot of research on financial stuff and trying to gain wisdom and understand the world. And what I read about life insurance was that you want to buy for yourself a window of time where you are covered in case you die and someone relies on you financially. But then after that window is closed, you need to have your own plans in place. And so I bought life insurance when I was 20 years old for 35 years. I've canceled it and gotten something else about a year or two ago because my plans have changed so much. But the point is, at 20 years old, I had a 35-year policy which covered my wife until I was 55 years old. Now, let's say I die at 56 and you think, oh, the life insurance policy didn't pay off. What a shame. The point is, at 56, you should have enough money set aside because you're planning to retire soon that if you do die, your spouse is still okay. And so what you're doing is you're buying a window of safety. Okay, I want to apply that same concept with what I've done in terms of retirement. So in case you don't know this already from watching the channel, I'm 35 years old. I just resigned/retired from Volkswagen after 17 years. I have $430,000 in total. I own my house and I spend about $18,000 to $2,000 a month with aftermarket medical insurance. So I have something like 15 to 20 years before I'm out of money, maybe sooner, maybe later, whatever. We don't have to argue about that. The point is I've purchased for myself a period of time where I don't have to be employed in order to keep living. And that's going to allow me to finish out the best years of my life as a father while being unrestrained by the world. Okay, now, there's a couple caveats that are worth mentioning. The first thing is that when I was working in Volkswagen making around $100,000 a year, my goal was to not run out of money today and to not put myself in a position where I will run out of money tomorrow or the next day or the next day. And part of the reason that was my goal is because if you run out of money and you're already working 45 hours a week, there aren't that many ways to go out and make more money and make up for having run out of money. However, right now, I don't work 45 hours a week, which means if things started to get tough, I have a pretty easy solution, which is to just go back to work. So that's the first caveat, is that when you're in a position like this, you have a tool in your toolbox that the average person doesn't have. You have a relatively easy way to fix your financial crisis and just go back to work. Whereas the guy already working can't just work two jobs so easily and make good money. The second thing, and this is really what this video is all about. Since I got married, my wife and I have lived on a budget. I'm going to do a video about that someday. It was based in Excel, and we basically tracked all the money that we spent whenever we swiped the credit card or debit card or cash, and we just categorized what we spent. It's like we went to the movies, that's entertainment. We went to the grocery store, that's groceries. We paid the electric bill, that's electric. And we would plan on spending a certain amount of money each month, and we would check ourselves to see if we underspent or overspent. And if we underspent, we carried over the surplus to the next month. And if we overspent, we carried over the deficit to the next month. And we had to kind of work ourselves out of the proverbial hole, even though it was only really a debt to ourselves. Anyway, we basically tracked every dollar for 15 years. And that was when I was making $100,000 a year at near the end of my career. Well, now I make $0 a year. And I thought that I was going to turn into an absolute penny pincher. Like, Michelle, you have to talk to me before we spend $1 because there's no more money coming in and we have to just ensure that it doesn't go back out. And that has not happened. In fact, it's been the total opposite. It's the weirdest thing I could have imagined. And that is, now that we have no money coming in, and now that we are destined to run out of money based on our current trajectory, I actually worry about money far less. And I think I can explain to you why that is. It's not just a feeling or me. Here's the deal. You and I both know that someday we will die. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. No one is claiming to live forever, and no one is suggesting that if you live a certain way or exercise a certain way or eat a certain way, you can live forever. And so we know our life will come to an end. Well, look at your bank account. There are people who tell you, if you're careful with how you spend and how you save, your bank account never has to go to zero. It can extend forever, at least until you die. And so you put a certain amount of effort into preserving your bank account and your finances so that it outlasts you, it outlives you. And now I'm not in that situation. Now I'm in a situation where I basically am on a trajectory where I will go broke. Whether I go broke in 15 years or 20 years, it's unknown. But the point is, I'm headed for broke. And that's just like life and death. You and I are headed for death. It may come tomorrow, it may come at 99, but we know it's coming. And because we know there is an end, we live with a certain amount of adventure. We take on a certain amount of risk. People say YOLO, you only live once, or, you can't worry about tomorrow will worry about itself. But the point is, you and I do not go around trying to eat a certain way, exercise a certain way, and avoid risky behaviors with the hope that by doing so, we'll live forever. Obviously, we do those things because we want to extend our lives, let's say as much as possible. But the point is, you're going to die. And so at some point you say, I'm going to risk driving down the highway at 70 miles an hour. I'm going to risk skydiving. I'm going to risk swimming. I'm going to risk this exciting thing because life would be awfully boring to go through the whole thing and never taken a risk, never had a sense of adventure. So hopefully you can see the parallel between those two. If you really thought you could live a lifestyle where you would never, ever, ever die, you would be walking on eggshells. You would be extremely careful with everything you did because you thought, well, if I get this right, I live forever. If I get this wrong, I die, and I don't want to die. And that's what it's like to have a bank account. If I do this right, the bank account doesn't go to zero. If I do this wrong, it goes to zero. And now that I'm destined for zero, aside from unforeseen events, I have this sense of adventure with my money that I never had before. And so when my kids say, can we get ice cream? I don't say, well, it isn't in the budget, so we can't get ice cream. I think, how many more years am I going to have with my kids? How many more times are they going to want to get ice cream with their dad before they think dad's a loser and they don't want me around? And I'm not trying to say that we just splurge and spend. We still, own 2 old used cars and we're still buying our clothes at thrift stores and we're still living the way we were. But you don't decide what you buy and not buy based on whether it's in the budget or in the bank account. You use a different muscle, a wisdom muscle, or a YOLO muscle, and you recognize that time is running out. And so I'm 35 years old. I think the American average for a white male is like 70 years. So I'm almost a halfway point, right? But I might not be at half point. I might be at my last day. I mean, tonight could be my night. Tomorrow could be my night. And so when you have that sense of finality and that sense of the end is coming, there's nothing I can do to avoid it completely, you live with adventure. And the same thing has happened to me with finances. And so if you're anything like me at all and you're thinking of FIRE or early retirement or making the most of your life while you're young with your kids, I just want to not even encourage you. I just want to inform you that once you are retired and you have no income, you have a pretty good plan B, which is to go back to work if things don't work out. And the normal working guy doesn't have that option because he's already tapped out. I mean, he's already maxed out. And the second thing is, if you're terrified that once you have no income, you will start becoming a penny pincher and you can't and won't enjoy life, maybe you're right, but that's what I thought, and it didn't happen to me. So That's why I'm labeling this video as you might be ready to retire sooner than you think. And if you're a parent and you have already begun to see how fast the kids grow, then maybe it makes sense to take an early retirement in your 20s or 30s and go back to work into your 60s or 70s. Because when you look at 60 and 70 and 80-year-olds who are retired, they wish that they could go back to their 30s or their 40s and relive that time with their kids. And I don't think there's that many 30 or 40-year-olds who are wishing that they could golf or lay on a beach or go to Florida and sit in a condominium. So just think about, I may not be fully retired. I may have to go back and get a job someday, but like, I want to work not during my prime years, not during the most influential years for my children, while I'm still healthy and adventurous and able to go see the world and swim under waterfalls and mountain bike and rock climb. And so it's not actually my desire to encourage you and push you in a direction, because I don't even know you. It is my desire to inform you of what is generally not available in this world and on the internet, which is people who've gone through a process like this and are reflecting upon it and experiencing it. So I hope that helps somebody. I hope that helps you make a decision. I hope that helps you change the way you think about life and kids and death and bank accounts. And yeah, I got nothing else to say. Take care, folks.